Hey guys, today I wanted to talk about alternative mulch, especially for those of us that cannot purchase and drag home big bags of shredded bark mulch. But there's plenty of alternatives right in your garden that are often just nearby the plants you want to mulch. Let me show you one example here. Pay no attention to the droopy tomatoes. They've been recently transplanted, but I just pulled up some clover from my garden. I didn't have roots. I just took about 2 minutes to pull up some clover and spread it around on top of the soil. And I'll show you right where I got it. Just a few steps over here, I have a very pollinator friendly lawn, and it's full of clover, and I tried to let the seeded ones stay, but I just basically went like this and just made a couple of little buckets of it, and I brought it over, and it's also very nutrient rich and with nitrogen. So once it breaks down, it'll be very good for the tomato plant. But as you can see, I didn't have to walk very far, and there's no heavy lifting. And this goes for grass clippings too, guys. You can, if you mow your own grass, of course you can use the clippings from your lawnmower bag and do some light layers. You don't want to do it too thick, but it's so important to cover the soil. And now I can relax, and if it needs more, I certainly don't have very far to go, and there was no heavy lifting. Now, every year I used to mulch this path. You can see up here, it's kind of a sizable path, and this is at the top of my hill. But I've taken to cutting down my miscanthus grass. Every year, every late winter or early spring, I chop down the miscanthus grass and I lay it along here. And it's such a thick, it's such a lot that it's a very thick layer and no weeds grow. Of course, it's a little hard to walk in, but it does flatten with rainstorms. And I get my miscanthus grass from right over there. I have 3 huge bushes, and then I have at least 5 more in the front. So miscanthus grass or ornamental grass makes wonderful mulched paths. And this would be good on a garden bed as well too, guys. It's free, it's lightweight, and it works. I have mulched my green onions with some trimmings from some daffodils, which are about to turn brown. As the heat rolls in, these will all turn brown. So I used it to cover the soil around the green onions. Very easy, creating some shade and some fertility as it breaks down. Now, although this does require some work and some heavy lifting perhaps, in the fall I gather up all of my fall leaves. I bring the ones from the front out back here and I put them in compost rings. And then when I want to mulch my whole beds, my vegetable and flower beds, I have a resource, and they're partially broken down. Some people drive over them with the lawnmower and they make more of a leaf mulch, which I think would be very nice, but we don't do our own grass here, so I don't have that option. But look, guys, I have just mulched before the heat of the summer. I have mulched many of my areas with some broken down leaves, and I'll show you where I got them. And again, if you're someone that can't do heavy lifting, you can, use a small container to go to your composting area and just spread it out at your own leisure. But this was free, and it's a wonderful, wonderful alternative to lugging heavy bags of shredded bark mulch. Now, I don't do this in front. I don't do this in my front ornamental landscaping, but I do this a lot for my vegetable and flower beds and anything in the backyard. And I have these compost rings set up all over the garden. So I usually pick the closest one and just carry a few bucketfuls at a time. Leaves aren't very heavy, especially if they're dry. And the last alternative mulch I wanted to mention was any ground cover. Look at this. This is a very long span of garden border that I do not have to mulch. It is completely covered and shaded by this houtonia. I know some people hate this. This is called fish mint, and it grew over from my neighbors, and my husband and I love it. It is such a thick ground cover, no weeds come through. It does have these lovely blooms in the spring, but it's so thick that the ground underneath is shaded and protected and cool. Even in the dry months, dry, hot months, it's protected. And I'm just so happy to have it. I believe this ground cover is called lamium. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I put a couple of plants in 2 years ago, and now it's mulching the bottom of my fig tree. This stand of liriope has spread throughout my bed, and I do not need to buy any mulch for this bed, and I don't need to lift a finger either. If we turn around here, you can see my side hill. This is a hill that's sometimes shady, but it is entirely covered by a ground cover called Pachysandra. And it's been like this for 25 or 30 years. I think this part of the hill was planted, and I put a few sprouts over there, and it has since taken over, and nothing will grow through it. I guarantee you that's some very healthy soil underneath this living mulch. So I highly recommend getting ground covers planted, and that is really a no-work mulch. I've got Pachysandra everywhere. Here's a whole corner of it in my garden near one of my gates. I actually think that's a lot prettier than shredded bark mulch. So guys, before you go out and lug some bags of shredded bark mulch home, look around and see what you might use in your own garden, and definitely get some living mulch planted. Utilize lots of ground covers. Save your wallet and your back. Thanks for watching.